Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Constable Matthew Dawson, one of the Media Relations Officers with the London Police Service. To start, I would like to acknowledge the people whose lands we are gathering on today. The Anishinaabeg, Haudenosaunee, Lenapehouk, and the Attawandaron people. We would also like to recognize the First Nations communities in this area, which includes Chippewa of the Thames First Nation, Oneida Nation of the Thames, and Munsee Delaware Nation. Today, we will be sharing information in relation to gun and drug enforcement by our Guns and Gangs section since July 2024. We will take questions directly after the press conference, at which time I will ask that you raise your hand, and I will call on you one at a time to ask your question. Chief Tai Trung will commence the press conference with the opening remarks.
Thank you, Matt. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us both in person and via live stream today. Today, we're sharing the impactful results of enforcement efforts led by Detective Sergeant Josh Silcox and the dedicated members of our Guns and Gangs section. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge His Worship Mayor Josh Morgan, Chair of our Police Service, Mr. Ali Shabar, Vice Chair, Ms. Megan Walker, who is here with us today, and also Executive Director of our Police Service Board, Stephanie Johansson, who is also here. Their strong support has been vital in our transformation as we continue to transform as an organization and modernize to ensure the safety and well-being of our community. So thank you for being here. While many municipalities across the province and the country experienced an increase in crime severity last year, London achieved a significant decrease, both in the rate and severity of crime. In fact, we saw the largest reduction nationwide in Canada in the crime severity index. And that reduction was a substantial 14% decrease from the previous year. That includes a 10% reduction in violent crime severity. For the first time in 10 years, our city fell below the national average for crime severity index. This achievement is not due to one single effect or effort. It reflects the dedication and the hard work of every member and volunteer of the London Police Service and the collaboration of our community members who share our commitment to community safety and well-being. This includes community members and leaders like Mr. Lloyd Stacey, who leads the Middlesex Crime Stoppers, London Middlesex Crime Stoppers. Thank you for being here today, sir. I would also like to recognize the leadership of my three deputy chiefs. Deputy Chief Trina McSween, who couldn't be here today, who leads organizational wellness and performance. Deputy Chief Scott Guilford, who is here today, who oversees community trust and frontline operations. And Deputy Chief Paul Bastian, who you'll hear from, who leads community safety and specialized investigations. For our police service to be effective, all three areas of leadership must work together, moving forward in unity. The reduction in crime is not a result of one event, but a collective commitment where we as police embrace our responsibility to work with and work for the community. Our enforcement efforts have delivered significant results. We have seized large quantities of dangerous drugs, including fentanyl and carfentanil. We have also removed illegal firearms from our streets. To date, these efforts have contributed to a 48% reduction in gun violence in our city. The stakes could not be higher. Over the past 5 years, annually, 120 lives are lost in our city due to drug toxicity. Shockingly, more than 80% of opioid-related deaths are directly linked to fentanyl. London, like the rest of our province and our country, is facing a devastating opioid crisis. The vast majority of overdose deaths are tied to fentanyl, which is why today's announcement is critically important. I now invite Deputy Chief Paul Bastian to share further details, but before I conclude, I want to acknowledge and thank all of our members who come to work each day with pride and with purpose, knowing that they all play a critical role in ensuring the safety and well-being of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Good morning, everybody. Firearms in circulation within our community pose a constant threat to its safety and well-being. Anytime a firearm is actually discharged, there is tremendous potential for devastating, often lethal outcomes with respect to the individuals targeted and their families, innocent bystanders, and the community at large. Aside from the obvious tragedy of lives lost or forever altered, the use of firearms shakes the community's sense of safety to its core. Statistics Canada's 2024 report on firearms and violent crime in Canada highlights an increase of nearly 10% in the rate of police-reported firearm-related violent crime in 2022 over the previous year. In the London Census metropolitan area, which includes areas outside the City of London proper, there were just under 25 police-reported firearm-related violent crime incidents per 100,000 population. The link between the illegal drug trade, as the Chief mentioned, and firearms is clear. And individuals involved in drug trafficking frequently have access to or carry firearms, most often handguns. Shortly, you will hear more about this from Detective Sergeant Josh Silcox. Today, we will make available a list of individuals recently charged with numerous Criminal Code and Controlled Drugs and Substances Act offenses following enforcement undertaken by the Guns and Gangs section. Like the items you see here before you, some of the statistics speak for themselves. Of 70 people charged, 40 had one or more prior convictions related to drug and weapons offenses. Of those 40, 28 had one or more prior convictions for a violent offense, including 15 individuals with one or more convictions for a firearms offense, of those which include possession of a firearm, discharge of a firearm, and use of a firearm in the commission of an offense. 8 individuals have one or more convictions for robbery. 2 have been convicted of kidnapping. Several of the 28 people in that group have convictions for assault, including assault causing bodily harm, assault by choking, and assault with a weapon. 3 of the 28 have forcible confinement convictions. Those statistics, again, speak for themselves and are alarming. The final thing I'll speak to you today about is the extent to which individuals charged with offenses at large are involved in some of what you see here and what you're going to hear about today. Among the 70 individuals charged, nearly a third or 24, were at large on conditions of bail or another form of judicial interim release. This statistic illustrates the threat posed by violent repeat offenders and the critical importance of our strategic, intelligence-led approach to rooting out violent offenders in the community. I'll now invite Detective Sergeant Josh Silcox to share some additional details with respect to our targeted enforcement efforts.
Good morning. I'd like to thank all of those in attendance for coming today, and thank you to those who are appearing remotely for your attendance as well. My name is Josh Silcox. I am the Detective Sergeant in charge of the Guns and Gangs section here at the London Police Service. The Guns and Gangs section is responsible for conducting proactive investigations into drug trafficking and firearms-related offenses in London. Our goal is to disrupt, deter, and hold individuals accountable for these offenses and keep our city safe. Today you will see the results of the targeted enforcement efforts of our dedicated team of women and men. We are committed to doing our part to ensure the safety and well-being of everyone in our city. Drug trafficking and illegal firearms possession poses a safety risk to everyone. The Guns and Gangs section has conducted numerous proactive investigations into illegal drug trafficking and firearms possession in the City of London. Some of the results of these efforts have been shared previously, while others form part of ongoing investigations, which we are now able to share. In the process of our enforcement efforts, members of the Guns and Gangs section have seized significant quantities of cocaine, fentanyl, and firearms. This includes the single largest fentanyl seizure in the history of the London Police Service. In total, these investigations have resulted in over $8 million in drugs seized. In the process, 70 people have been charged. Our investigations have resulted in a total of 160 Controlled Drugs and Substances Act charges, 371 Criminal Code of Canada charges, amounting to a total of 531 charges laid. These investigations have netted substantial seizures in drugs and firearms, including a combined total of close to 17 kilograms of fentanyl seized, 14 kilograms of cocaine seized, close to 700 pounds of cannabis seized, 27 kilograms of cannabis resin products seized, 2 kilograms of methamphetamine seized, 19 firearms seized, and over $650,000 cash proceeds from drug trafficking. Additionally, in these investigations, we have seized 2,820 dilaudid pills, 2,249 oxycodone pills, 2.8 kilograms of psilocybin, over 1 kilogram of MDMA, and almost 1 kilogram of carfentanil. Proactive targeted enforcement is only one part of our total efforts to combat gun and drug violence in London. I will now provide updates on 2 recent shootings in the City of London. On November 19th, 2024, at approximately 5:51 p.m., police received a 911 call reporting a shooting at an apartment building near Simcoe Street and Wellington Street in the City of London. Suspects forcibly entered a unit, discharged a firearm into the wall of an apartment. No one was injured in the shooting, and the suspects fled prior to police arrival. The investigation was assigned to the London Police Service Criminal Investigations Division. On December 7th, 2024, members of the Guns and Gangs section identified Nicholas Travis of London as a suspect from this shooting. At 1:29 a.m. on December the 8th, 2024, Travis was located and arrested. Following Travis's arrest, a search warrant was executed by the Guns and Gangs section on his residence. The following was seized as a result of that search warrant: 12.4 kilograms of fentanyl, 4 loaded handguns, over 1 kilogram of cocaine, 388 grams of carfentanil, and 794 oxycodone pills. As a result of this investigation, Nicholas Travis has been charged with several firearms and drugs offenses. Additionally, at approximately 2:30 a.m. Saturday, December 14th, 2024, the London Police Service received reports of gunshots in the area of White Oaks Road and Southdale Road in the City of London. This location is approximately 5 kilometers from the nearest hospital. Moments later, we received a number of 911 calls in relation to gunshots outside of the emergency department entrance to Victoria Hospital, located at 800 Commissioners Road East. The initial responders located a vehicle at the entrance of the emergency department with damage consistent with it being shot, and an injured male inside the hospital who was suffering from gunshot wounds. Damage to the entrance area of the emergency department was also located. The victim's injuries were not life-threatening, and he was treated and released from hospital later that day. Investigators believe that the two incidents are connected and are looking for a 2018 or 2019 silver or gray Hyundai Sonata with a sunroof. This vehicle was believed to have been driven by the suspect. The London Police Service would like to thank those members of our community that have already assisted with this investigation. We are still appealing to the public for any dashcam footage from anyone who may have been in the area of Southdale Road and White Oak Road between 2 a.m. and 2:30 a.m. on December the 14th, or who may have witnessed a vehicle matching our suspect vehicle operating at a high rate of speed in that area. Investigators would also like to hear from anyone who may have heard gunshots in the south end of the city around that time. You can contact the London Police Service directly at 519-661-5670, or if you wish to remain anonymous, please contact Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-8477. Finally, anyone with general information on guns and drugs can contact Crime Stoppers or the London Police Service at any time. Thank you. I would now like to introduce Mayor Josh Morton.
So thank you very much. As I was standing up here listening to the information being shared, it's I have to say it's a little bit humbling to stand on this side of the table of weapons and drugs and not think about what these toxic drugs and harmful substances would do to members of our community if they were not on the table in this room, but out on the streets of London. What these weapons in front of me would be doing if they weren't on this table in this room, but out in the hands of those being charged for crimes, and as was described, people with previous criminal records out on our streets. You know, how many Londoners and how many individuals would be harmed if these things were out on the streets and not in this room? And that's why it's hard not to think about the incredible work that members of the London Police Service do each and every day to protect the citizens of London and take these harmful drugs and weapons off of our streets, to ensure that our streets are safer today than they were when these were out there. And as we enter the holiday season and we're focused on maybe last minute Christmas shopping or getting things done or school ending, you know, it's hard not to think about the men and women of the London Police Service who will continue to serve through that holiday season, each and every day, whether it's a holiday or not, making sure that our city is safe and protected from violent crime, from drugs and guns on our streets. And so to Josh, to you and your team, you know, and the incredible work you have done on behalf of the citizens of London, thank you so much for everything you've done in this investigation and to bring these items off of our streets. And to Chief Trong and every member of the admin and the London Police Service, you know, each and every day, I think your work can sometimes go unthanked, but it is deeply valued by members of our community, including myself and City Council. And that's why we were proud to make a historic investment in the London Police Services, because we recognize the challenges on our street. And we believe in the administration of this organization to make the changes necessary, to spend that money, to make the investments, to create the type of change that you see on the table in front of us. You know, that is what it is about. The municipality supporting the police so that they can do the good work that they have to do on the front lines, serving our citizens each and every day. And so again, on behalf of the citizens of London, thank you, Chief. Thank you, Deputy Chiefs. Thanks to you, Josh, and your teams. And thanks to every member of the London Police Service for what you do for us each and every day. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Morgan. We will now take questions from the media. Please raise your hand, and when called upon, I will ask for your name and the media outlet you are with. Let me know who you would like to direct your question to. Go ahead, Dale.
Dale from the London Free Press. I don't know, this could go to the chief or Detective Sergeant Silcox. You mentioned of the 70 people charged, how many people are repeat offenders, past convictions. What's it like as a police officer investigator seeing some of these people released on bail? A guy like Ali Batty charged in a gun and drug bust, a history of gun and drug charges. He's free on bail again.
Yeah, so the question is, the question is just surrounding
Just
people who have been
repeat offenders
released.
getting released on bail.
Repeat
and
offenders who have been
reaction
released on
to
bail.
that. They're upset. I think the Ali Batty case is a prime example.
And your question is, what's it like?
What's it like watching that?
It is frustrating from the police perspective. We're doing all we can to hold these individuals accountable, and if they are released, we'll do the best we can to continue to hold them accountable.
Do you think it puts the community at danger when they're released? Someone with a history of gun and drug charges, offenses, allegations?
I can't comment on the danger to the community and what the community would feel. I mean, that would be up to the community members themselves. What I can comment is on the individuals we're talking about and the charges they're up against are serious offenses, serious allegations. Those allegations themselves, depending on who that member of the community is, could see them as a danger to the public.
Thanks, Sergeant.
Thank you.
Thanks for that question, Dale. I'll just add to what Detective Sergeant Silcox stated. We live in a democratic society, so the beauty of it is that everybody does have the right to be considered innocent until proven guilty. The judicial process is separate than the police. We are separate, although we have to work very closely with our judicial partners and the judicial system. I can tell you, as a police chief, for our organization, that it does impact the members, and it impacts the members greatly when our job is truly focused on making sure that this community is safe. So when our officers are investigating dangerous individuals or individuals who pose a risk to this community and communities abroad, they put a lot of work, they put a lot of effort and a lot of emotion in all their investigations. So when individuals are released, we understand the process. We have strong support from our leaders within the community. Our policing partners are looking for change, but we are focusing on what we can do as a police service to make sure that we continue those efforts and not be frustrated on what is happening. And I won't say at the courts, but I'll say in each case, you have to look at it circumstantially, based on those specific facts and those indicators, Dale. So there's a big voice at the Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police and the CACP, where police leaders across the province and the country are advocating and identifying these issues. So it is frustrating, but we understand the process as well.
Go ahead.
Andrew from CBC for Chief Trong. One of your members explained to me that two of those bags of fentanyl is worth $1 million on the street. What do we know about how it gets to this community? We see the damage it does outside when we walk around downtown, but what do we know about who's bringing it here?
So the question is for the chief, and it's in relation to how drugs are coming into the city.
Who's bringing it here?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when you're looking at fentanyl, and just for context, fentanyl is roughly 100 times more potent and stronger than morphine. Fentanyl, heroin, is much stronger than morphine. Fentanyl is about 50 times more potent and dangerous than heroin. The officers seized large quantities of carfentanil. Carfentanil is 100 times stronger than fentanyl. So these are dangerous, dangerous drugs. Now, with these drugs, these are synthetic. So they're produced in a lab. We know from our experience that fentanyl and carfentanil, there has to be precursors combined through the process to manufacture these synthetic opioids. Those precursors are coming in from outside of Canada. Super labs are within our country and our communities creating these drugs. They're also coming in finished product through the borders as well. So there's two ways they're getting in. They're getting in finished product through the borders and into our communities, and then the precursors are being brought in where they're being manufactured within our communities. So I can tell you that it's organized crime. And that's why it is very important that we prioritize enforcement efforts when we're looking at community safety, and investments have to be made for police services at all levels to make sure that these drugs do not hit our streets.
Thank you, Chief. Any other questions? Go ahead.
Jerry DeWan from CTV News. Again, coming back to the organized crime aspect of this, I mean, for the longest time, we looked at drug distribution, production as primarily the purview of organized criminal organizations. But it does seem like it's so much easier to manufacture and so much easier to distribute now. And so how does that change the challenges of seeing these small-time labs popping up everywhere? And secondarily, it's the same with weapons, where it seems like that there is an easier distribution of these weapons or replicas that create those challenges as well. How do you deal with that?
So the question is just surrounding the creation of small labs becoming bigger, and then the ease of weapons coming into the city. Chief?
Thank you for that question. I would say how we deal with it is not simple, but intentional. We deal with looking at the threats and the individuals and groups that are causing the most harm to our community here and communities abroad. We know crime does not have a border, and criminals that are operating within London are often operating outside of London as well. So how we deal with that is collectively as police leaders and police organizations to continue efforts prioritizing those individuals and those groups that pose the most harm. And we do that at every level. We do that at the high level, mid-level, street level, and even addiction-based level, because trafficking does occur at the addiction-based level.
Dale?
Just another question, again, probably for the chief or Sergeant Silcox. Do you guys, are you able to speak on the origins of these guns, whether they're illegal guns, legal weapons? The 17 handguns, are they thought to be smuggled from the United States? Do you guys work with ATF to trace the origins?
Okay, so the question is in relation to the origins
Yes.
of some of these weapons here.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Thanks for the question, Dale. As part of our investigation, we do conduct queries to determine the origin of the firearms. What I can say with respect to the firearms we've listed here today, those queries aren't immediate in the sense that when we get them back, of the queries we have conducted, the firearms were sourced from the United States.
So that's of the ones you found?
Of the
out?
ones
Okay.
we've been able to receive, but not all have we received the results for yet.
Are you able to speak like what can be done to kind of combat that issue? Is that just generally what London Police does to try and, is that outside of the London Police?
I mean, again, it speaks back to what the chief said about just our commitment to our community and our investigations, but in a broader scale, working with our community partners and those other agencies within our province and country that can help assist us with determining the methods in which these firearms may be appearing in our community.
Thank you.
I could add
Yes,
to that.
absolutely.
I'll add to that, Matt. And totally in agreement with what Detective Sergeant Silcox has stated. Very important. We know from historic data, national data, historic data that we have here, that the vast majority of the firearms that we seize and we see on the streets today come from the United States. That is clear data, clear evidence from firearms and tracing enforcement programs. We know that from investigations provincially and nationally. So what can we do about that? Well, we continue to work with our partners, such as the RCMP, such as CBSA, because they're getting through the borders, they're getting through other ways into our country. So when we support our police partners with investigations and projects, we are impacting and we are creating a safer community for all the smaller municipalities, and including our own and the larger ones. So we have to do our part with supporting our partners, but we have to do our part that once the illegal firearms come into our community, it is very important that enforcement efforts continue. If we don't continue to prioritize and put resources into gun violence and drug violence, what will happen is things will spike completely out of control. So we have to continue prioritizing the great work of what Detective Sergeant Josh Silcox and his team have been doing. And I will state again, we have prioritized specialized investigations specific for these types of crimes, but work is done across the organization. Our frontline officers who stop in cars every single day are seizing firearms more so now than ever before, posing a tremendous risk to them, their families, and this community. That involves the work of our call takers, our communications operators, our civilian police professionals who are supporting this organization. It all has to come together.
Go ahead, Jerry.
Jerry DeWant, CTV again. For Mayor Morgan, again, you emphasize the need to put the money into the budget that we are seeing reflected now. But that contrasts with the fact that we have seen crime statistics go down significantly in the recent year or so. And then others would say, okay, so why don't we focus more on dealing with those frontline services directed towards addictions and taking care of people in poverty and those types of things? How do you balance that?
So the question is with respect to balancing the funds in terms of addiction services along with the organizational work you've seen here today. There.
Yeah, so the answer to this is we have to do both, right? We have crime that has to be dealt with in our city. We have guns and drugs on our streets that have to be dealt with. We need significant investments in police services to do policing work. At the same time, this council and mayors across this province have been very clear, the provincial and federal governments, that there is a healthcare crisis on our streets as well with mental health and addictions. And there needs to be significant investments into those spaces to provide people the care and treatment they need to break those addictions, right? So no one ever said we were going to try to go out and police people who didn't need to be policed. We're going out and they're policing police problems. They're going out and policing crime, and that's what you see before you today. But at the same time, we speak just as loudly to our provincial and federal partners to say investments need to be made in the healthcare aspects of the opioid and drug crisis that we see across this country. It is echoed by every single mayor. The Premier and the Prime Minister and other levels of government are starting to listen, and they're starting to make investments. We need treatment and care facilities that are readily available in cities like London and across the province. We need the type of care facilities like the province has contemplated with heart hubs to take people off the streets and out of pathways into drugs, addiction, and crime, and into pathways of housing. And we make tremendous investments in housing and supportive housing. It is part of our prioritization of our plan. So, I don't think you can pit these things against each other. I think we have to be very heavily involved in both if we're going to actually be effective, because there is a crime issue that has to be resolved by policing, and there is a healthcare issue that is resolved and supported by those other investments that we're also either making as a municipality or advocating for. So for me, it's both and.
Okay.
Oh, yep. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm just going to add to what the mayor said, and that's a very good question. We get asked this all the time, sir, all the time. So I will tell you, yes, resources, funding need to go in to address the root causes of crime. 100%, I agree with you. We get asked all the time, take the money away from the police budget and our police service to fund these programs that are desperately needed in community. If today we took away all the prioritizing funding to support specialized investigations in our police service, do you think the organized crime that is happening in our community, in our country, those groups, those individuals are going to stop? Do you think those individuals need support to address the root causes of crime, which one is poverty? I would suggest groups, individuals who are committing these crimes have a lot of money. They don't need support to address the root causes of crime. This is strictly profit. It's profit, it's disregard for human life, disregard for the safety of people that live in our community. And I want to highlight, in the last 5 years, 600 people in our city died from drug toxicity. 80% of that directly linked to fentanyl and carfentanil. The people who are bringing these drugs in and selling them and trafficking them, I agree, some individuals who find themselves in crime and the criminal underworld found their way in there because we were unable to address the root causes, the community. But at some point, the police have to engage, and we have to do our job to address that, because I will tell you that people, not everybody, there's individuals, criminals, that have found their way into the criminal underworld. They are no longer poor. They are no longer in need to address those root causes of crime. And the community are not going to be able to stop them. Our members have to do our job. Policing as a whole have to continue strong enforcement. We have to do this together. And that is why our organization, you see it, we're prioritizing enforcement. We are prioritizing crime prevention with the youth and the at-risk kids. We have to do it all. We have to do it with community. But we can't say, let's take away funding for our police service to support other areas. We have to support everyone. But the wrong thing to do is take away support for our members who are working every single day, diligently, trying to make this city safe.
If I may add, it's not necessarily just taking away support. It is the proportional addition of support. And again, I don't think that this is conflation of defund the police and talking about how much reasonably should we put towards the police budget. So the question is, how much more does police need, or how much better served would it be to go into other aspects of supporting the community?
Yeah, so I would say to you, and this isn't new, there has been a lack of support and funding to our organization for many, many years. For many years. And only with the mayor, city council, and our strong support of our police service board were we able to get support for this multi-year budget. And I have to remind people, this does not bring us up to par. We are still below where we need to be, but we have to start somewhere. We have to start somewhere. And I'm with you. I'm with everybody in community. Let's support organizations, incredible organizations in this community, and leaders who are doing significant work that we can't do alone. They need to be supported. Funding needs to go there. We have to support everybody.
I want to add something. Yeah, let me add something too from a larger perspective on police budgets. So look across the province what's happening, right? Policing is costly and it's necessary. You know, there's crime in this province that has to be dealt with, and you see police budgets needing to have investments made in municipalities across the province. You recently saw the provincial government recognize the increasing costs of policing in rural communities through the OPP and putting money on the table to say we're going to assist those communities in that rising cost of policing because they recognize the value and necessity of the work that police do in this province, but also that municipalities cannot bear the full share, given all of the things we need to invest in, of just police budgets on their own. And so I can tell you the Ontario big city mayors and other mayors who are from cities across this province are engaging with the provincial government on a similar level of support for police budgets in cities who have their own police forces, much like the province supported the OPP. And I think that's highly appropriate because crime does not stop at the City of London's border. They don't just say, oh, this is where the City of London police end, so that's where the crime ends. No, this is a province-wide challenge, and municipal police forces and the OPP and municipal and provincial governments have to work together to ensure the resources are on the table to deal with the issue at hand, but also recognize that municipalities, whether they're rural or urban, do not have the necessary resources in this country to do all of the things they're expected to do. Of every tax dollar collected, we collect 9 cents. Yet we're responsible for 60% of the infrastructure and incredibly important services like safe drinking water, police, fire protection, community services, roads, transportation, garbage removal, snow removal. Like, we have to do these things, and we simply do not have the revenue streams to be able to do them effectively to the level that everyone would like us to. So this requires a serious conversation in this province and this country about how municipalities are funded, because property taxpayers are at the bottom end of the stick on this, and that's got to change. And so that's the dialogue you see, and I'm actually optimistic that when I see the province recognize that municipalities need to be supported on the costs of policing in rural communities because of increasing OPP costs. But that does not mean that those costs and those rises of costs were not necessary investments to achieve the kind of results that you see this service starting to achieve, with the prioritization of these investments and targeting of resources into areas where they can be most effective. Right? You could talk about dollars spent, but you can talk about spending them highly effectively and producing results. And I can tell you that is my and council's expectation with the police budget. We're going to make an investment here on behalf of Londoners. And I know the chief, and I know the board, and I know city council, and I know Londoners expect that to produce results. And how can you not say that results are being produced when you stand in front of the largest fentanyl seizure in our community's history? So, we've got to do all of these things, but we've got to have engagements with other levels of government to say, we got to look at the way municipalities are funded, and we got to make sure all the necessary investments that can be made in all of those spaces, while not putting a disproportionate burden on a property tax system that is 150 years old and is regressive.
Okay, we've got time for one more question. Everybody's good? Awesome. Well, that concludes today's press conference. Again, thank you for everybody, not only in the building, but online for joining us. Please feel free to take photographs of the seized firearms and drugs that are displayed on both the tables, or all three tables in front of us. Thank you again.